Centre Court MBA festivals in the course of the year. And I think between each of them, I often forget the extraordinary convening power and bringing the world's top business schools into one place for 48 hours. And I think that's typified with this next session. You know, we have 4 of the best MBA programs in the world, and some friends of Centre Court that have been with us in the past to share their insight, their experience, and of course, these extraordinary transformational journeys that take place for their students. In fact, taking that next step, do join us in an hour when we'll be talking to the alumni from these 4 schools and some quite remarkable journeys that all of them have been. But where have they been? Well, they've been at Yale. We've got the School of Management, and Abigail Keese, who joins us. Abigail is the Assistant Dean of Career Development. They've been at Michigan Ross, and we're delighted to have Heather Byrne with us. Heather is the Managing Director of Ross's Career Development Office. Some of them have been talking Team Fuqua down at Duke, and it's always lovely to welcome back Ed Bernier. Ed is the Assistant Dean of the Daytime MBA Career Services, and some of them, of course, in that beautiful Charlottesville campus of Darden. And it's lovely to have Christy Gunville, who is the Managing Director of the full-time MBA cohort Careers. So all of you get to watch these extraordinary journeys, perhaps before they even arrive at school. Before we start to share some of those perspectives, I thought we could just remind our viewers, both today, joining us live, but that will be following this in the weeks and months that follow, just a little bit about what makes your institutions so special. So Abigail, if we can begin with you and Yale SOM, tell us about the school, its personality, what makes it so special.
Sure. How long do I have? So, I think one of the things that people hear a lot about SOM, and we all talk about, is our mission, which is to educate leaders for business and society. And it's not just lip service. It's everything that we do, from academics to career office to our staff, my team, and it's really integrated in everything. And there are a lot of different ways it looks. And I think some people think that there's a prescribed, that we mean something specific by it. Really what we mean is that whatever we're doing, we're thinking about how is it impacting a broader human beings and society and everything that makes that up. And, one of that I think is probably the best way to describe who we are, because our students really care about what they're doing. No matter what they're doing, they really care about the purpose and what they're achieving with it, whether it's investment banking, consulting, working for a startup, working for a nonprofit, working in education. They have that really very strong connection to why, and that why is really what drives all of us in and working with the students, that whatever their why is really what we're here to support.
Right, and you're holding up that mirror. Will, as I said, be capturing some of those individual stories within that wider context of business and society. Of course, at U of M, and enjoying 2 years in a beautiful college town of Ann Arbor, biggest football stadium, but of course, U of M is one of the biggest schools. So Heather, tell us about Ross and what makes it a special place.
Yes. Well, Ross's motto is building a better world through business. Like you mentioned, we're located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is the most educated city in the U.S. People from all over the world come to live and study here. It's a very vibrant city with great restaurants and a very strong sense of community. One of the great things about coming to Ann Arbor is chances are you don't know somebody here, as opposed to going to a really big city for school. So that really builds a great community, because you're going to walk down the street and see your classmates. The University of Michigan itself has over 100 departments ranked in the top 10. So you get to take advantage of a great university community. And like you mentioned, we have the largest stadium in the US and a very strong sense of school spirit. At the business school, we're known for being the pioneers of action-based learning. And we started this approach almost 30 years ago and continue to be the leaders and best in that approach. It's a core requirement for all of our MBAs, and the depth of our support for our action-based learning course includes not only faculty, but communication course coaches and librarians and researchers and peer coaches. So it's that approach to learning and the timing of that offering right before internship that really enables our students to bridge what they just learned from the core classes and then return to the workplace after taking their first year seamlessly for their internship and then put that into action. So if you're someone who learns by doing and rolling up their sleeves and taking action, then Ross is really the best place to be, with a very special community that is known for having great team players and collaborators and high levels of both IQ and EQ, emotional intelligence. So we also have one of the largest and most influential alumni networks as a university, and that really helps with career prospects and recruiting. It's hard to go anywhere without seeing the Block M and getting a very spirited "Go Blue."
I often wondered if in the application form there was a box you had to check that pledged allegiance to the football team, but I guess at Duke we could make it the basketball team, right, Ed? Fuqua, again, another extraordinary institution, part of a bigger university. So what makes Fuqua the place that it is?
Yeah, so thanks, Matt. And I mean, it's pretty easy for me to say, listen to what Abigail and what Heather said, and probably what Christy's going to say, and me say +1 on top of that. At Duke, we think business is uniquely positioned to solve a lot of the problems that the world is facing today and tomorrow. Yes, governments have a role in that, but business is uniquely positioned to be the leaders in solving those problems. So Duke exists to train and help leaders to be in those organizations that can solve those problems. That's quite simply what we're trying to do. So regardless of the flavor of the problem you're trying to solve, we exist to help train and get you there. Duke's a wonderful institution. Durham's a wonderful place to be. We have a lot of schools around us so that there's a very smart environment here in the Raleigh-Durham area. But on top of that, similar to what Abigail was talking about, a lot of us care about this mission of helping train our students to be those leaders at the companies that are mattering today and tomorrow. We have no idea what the problems of tomorrow are going to look like, but we are committed to training the leaders to be able to be prepared to solve all of them. But that's how we operate here at Duke.
Right. Christy, my co-host for Centre Court, John Byrne, moved to Charlottesville just a year or two ago. He says, Matt, you should see the wine bar on campus. It's incredible, this new facility that you have. But there's so much more. Tell us a little bit about Darden and its culture.
Oh, Matt, you will have to get down and see. I think he's probably referring to the Forum, which is our new beautiful hotel run by Kimpton that is on grounds at Darden. So just stepping back, I couldn't agree more with what Ed was saying. Our focus at Darden is really to improve the world overall through business by inspiring responsible leaders through our truly unparalleled and transformative learning experience. And what do we mean by unparalleled and transformative? Well, students will typically choose Darden as a place similar to how Heather was saying, one that they choose to come to experience Charlottesville in all its splendor as a smaller town that allows you to be immersed in this MBA community. So it's a very tight-knit collegial environment that you're opting into. And then you're also signing up for our well-known case teaching method that's really going to provide that unparalleled academic experience. And one thing that we often hear our students cite as one of the reasons they choose Darden is the teaching faculty overall, just the incredible passion that they bring to the classroom, which really allows them to gain a rigorous general management education, and one that they can take out into the world and solve all sorts of business problems. So that's really it in a nutshell. Of course, we have multiple program formats as well for students to choose from, whether that is our 2-year full-time program that is located in Charlottesville and our working professional opportunities. Those programs are actually based in Arlington, Virginia, in the Metro Washington, D.C. area as well.
Now, with some of those lofty and incredibly worthy goals, as each of you starts a new academic year, you're thinking, positive impact on business and society, solving some of the world's biggest challenges, how business can be a force for good. That's a lot of weight on your shoulders too, with the support, the nurturing, and helping all of these talented students that arrive at your 4 schools to go on and fulfill that promise. Abigail, when employers talk to you about Yale grads, is the sort of characteristics that you're describing, are those things that they always recognize in the Yale student?
They definitely do. I think the other thing that they often lead with is two things. One is how collaborative they are and how much they love working with them. And that sounds very basic or sort of trite in some ways, but there are so many students at so many schools who have stellar skills. And at the end of the day, who does someone really want to depend on and work with and strategize with and be creative with? And that's what we hear from our employers, that's really how they see our students and our alumni.
I suppose, Heather, one way to describe it, having impact, they're developing all of these skills, but how that then translates, again, with all of the recruiter connections that you have, do they say, this is something that we really love about Ross students, their ability to hit the ground and have impact?
Yep, you're muted.
Thank you. I think that's how our action-based learning shows up, is being able to hit the ground running and also being able to work up and down an organization. We focus on a lot of team-based learning when students are here and group learning. So with a really diverse student body, you're having to work with people who have different styles, and that helps you when you get to the workplace to, easily assess how people are working and develop those great communication skills and be able to have an immediate impact and work quickly and be able to adapt. That's something that we hear from our employers a lot. There's like a great humility and collaborative effort while also kind of bringing this rigor and analytic rigor to the workplace where people can work hard, get it done, and make an immediate impact.
I mean, working with others and collaboration, I guess that's embedded in the theme that I mentioned earlier, Ed, of Team Fuqua, and the idea of how individuals will then find their place and make that contribution in the future organizations they're working with. Again, typical feedback for Fuqua graduates.
Yeah, I mean, that's, some people would argue, and Christy will back me up on this. Team Fuqua is what defines Fuqua as a business school. We believe that a diverse, heterogeneous team is going to beat a non-diverse, homogeneous team every day of the week. And the thought there is that diverse ideas are going to bring increased innovation to that organization. And so if you believe that we're trying to solve difficult problems, which we probably all agree on, maybe the innovation is going to be key to unlocking the solution that's going to solve today's problem and tomorrow's problem. So the secret sauce of how we develop that here, I can't do that in like a pithy 90-second answer, but I will tell you, there's a lot of students that come here to Duke because of that, how to work more effectively as teammates and as leaders when you're working with very diverse teams, with the thinking that they're going to be working with diverse teams the rest of their lives. And so all of the experiences that we put students through here during our program is literally to train them how to be more effective in that diverse team management, with the outcome, the desired outcome of getting the most out of everybody so that you can get the best problem solved. So that's why we exist. Some people just love it too, right? I mean, some people just love working with each other, and we definitely have a lot of people that gravitate towards Duke because of that. But we're also looking at the business outcome, which is maybe a competitive stance on how we're trying to solve a problem versus just having fun working with each other.
Right. I suppose, Kirsty, you talked about the case method that is sort of, the heartbeat of the academic program. And I've seen that among Darden students when they then interview, whether it's at McKinsey or other companies where that approach is part of the process, and how they're all helping each other. They might also be applying to the same company for jobs, but it's the sense if one succeeds, we all succeed.
Yeah, you raise a great point, Matt. And I think that is something that, yes, Ed, as a happy Fuqua grad, I certainly experienced that at your school as well. That sense of, as you mentioned, Matt, you're in it together. There is this strong sense of just a collegial, tight-knit experience, especially in our core over that first year, where you are in tight learning teams that can learn together, be challenged together, problem solve together. But then you're expected as an individual at Darden to represent your learning team's perspective in section. So in your core class, in a very lively debate sort of experience, the cold call as we refer to it at Darden, where you bring the synthesis, analysis, and presentation skills to bear. And over your 2 years at Darden, you may not even realize you're honing these skills that are so valuable to employers in the workforces that you are going into. So from an employer standpoint, they value that, but then also that confidence and humility that Darden students are known for too.
Well, the idea that we're all in it together, the class of 2023 have been in it together, and perhaps if I could characterize it as a tougher market after a couple of years where there was almost overhiring and an abundance, maybe, just a step back from that. And I'd love to get perspectives, fairly granular perspectives from each of you. You have so much insight and experience. You know, the sectors and their continued demand, perhaps even within a sector, you're seeing emerging new skills. Abigail, what are you seeing from a perspective in New Haven?
You know, it's always tempting to try to generalize and describe a market as really great or really challenging. I think this one, I keep using the word, it's been different than recent years. There's been so much hiring activity. In some ways, we have employers coming out of the woodwork. They're different. You know, I think that many of the very large brand name employers overhired. And so they are pulling back a little bit, or they did pull back a little bit, and because they need to adjust. And if you take out the last few years, it's actually still a pretty nice trajectory that they've been hiring. But there were a year or two that were just out of control hiring. And so they're readjusting. That said, so many smaller and mid-sized employers across industries we've seen just are swooping in to try to really capitalize on that and really grab that talent while they can. And so it gives students amazing opportunities. You know, I tend to be a little bit biased on this because I love large employers. I've worked at large employers, and there are so many amazing opportunities and great career paths that don't include them. And so in many ways, this is forcing students to really explore and think, what is the best fit for me? And what do I really want? And what do I really value in a deeper way than many of them have actually needed to in the past few recent years. And so I think it's a long-term an amazing opportunity for our students and alumni. It definitely takes a little more work because when there are a lot of employers hiring fewer people each, it does take a lot more legwork on the student's part.
Right. And Heather, if you sort of share some of those perspectives, also bearing in mind the very international audience at Centre Court, both lots of US, but lots of international viewers that we have, how they might have thought of, you know, consulting, tech, perhaps finance as some of those stalwart sectors. And you know, what you're seeing at that level also for international placement. What does the year 2023 look like to Ross?
Yeah, I think what this is doing is forcing people to have a different mindset on how they approach their career right after school. So students come in, they know they're going to be taking on loans. They're really focused on that immediate job, and they have this, they're kind of sold this concept of a dream job. You know, that's admissions does great work to get students really excited about switching their career and getting this great offer right out of school. And I think when you're in a cycle, the market's always going to cycle. No one can predict it. Nobel Prize winners can't predict it. So what's happening is it's forcing people to take a step back and say, my career is not one job after my MBA. My career is probably multiple careers. I used to be a professional dancer. So, I mean, people are going to have multiple careers. So they need to start thinking about the stepping stones. So I came in, maybe I wanted to be a PM at Google. That might not happen when the tech market is down. So I need to now start thinking about what kind of job do I need after my MBA that's going to help me get there in 3 to 5 years when the market changes. So, I mean, right now we're talking to prospective students who are going to graduate in 2026. So who knows what the market's going to look like then. And so that's where I think it's important to have a mindset. And we hear this from employers too, right? You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to manage ambiguity. You have to really know yourself, your core strengths. You have to be able to articulate your transferable skills. Those are all the things that we teach and help people learn. And so when it comes to career, you have to be able to balance this, you know, what's immediately going to fit with my interests, skills, ability, and the marketplace. And then you also have to be thinking about your next move. So it's a combination of all of that. And I think the work that we do to set people up for success is the career skills for life that help them do that no matter what time of their life or the market.
You talk about 2026, it's over there somewhere. It feels like it's a long way away, but it really isn't.
No, I thought that was my retirement year, but it's not.
Yeah, no, your math is spot on for those applying for in the fall next year. And Ed, I think Heather's brought in this very important issue. Of course, there's a natural focus on my first position coming out of school, but stepping stones, as she said, and you know, you're working with them not just for that first, but the second, the third, fourth position. What are you seeing at the moment? And perhaps that same placing it in a longer time frame of how, you know, Fuqua graduates are then able to adapt to the market.
Yeah, I love how Heather said it forces a new mindset, because it really does. I mean, a lot of the things that we teach our students and my colleagues teach their students as well is how to think through their job search both today and the next 3 to 5 years. But sometimes a student will internalize that with the thought of, that's great. I'm going to take this little job out of business school and I'm going to worry about that other stuff later. When you're in a situation where some of those opportunities in front of them have been depressed a little bit, so there's not as much food at the table, people are forced to act differently. So, I'm just going to go out here and say this: things are not bad, right? I mean, so we've been in some bananas years for the last couple of years. So, when you look at like the job rates and all that kind of thing, they will look different, right? But we've been high-fiving each other with the numbers we're cranking out this year versus like 5 years ago, but it forces people to think differently right now. And for some of us in the Career Center world, we get kind of excited about that, because now we're saying, that thing that we taught you students that was a nice to have last year, it's a need to have right now. We need to be gritty. We need to actually forge our own pathways. If these arbitrary on-campus opportunities pan out for you, fantastic. But let's look at the entire menu, not just these arbitrary group of like 6 or 7 organizations that happen to hire thousands of MBA students. So it's one of those mindsets that whether a student likes it or not, they've had to take on, certainly starting last year. And that's something that gets slowly bred in with your students as your second years are helping facilitate this first year learning process.
Right. Christy, you and your colleagues at Darden met this class of 2023 in the fall of 2021, possibly even before, as you were working with your colleagues in admissions, so you already knew them very well. What Ed, Heather, and Abigail are describing of this journey that you share together, that we actually don't have the crystal ball of what that job market will be in 2023, but this is how we want to prepare you to be ready for anything. Does that ring true?
Absolutely. The number of times in a given week that I talk about my crystal ball, especially my sector specialty is consulting. So this is an area I think has been mentioned previously. We've seen some ups and downs, but if you just look at it at a very macro level and don't get down and pull back those layers to see what's actually happening, there's opportunity everywhere. And we are seeing that. And sometimes our students and maybe some prospective students see data at a really high level or see the headlines, right? And are quick to extrapolate and think of what that might mean. In reality, there's so much nuance here, and it really spells opportunity for our students. So while we have seen some of our more established or more traditional sectors still going remarkably strong, we're also seeing students pivot, think about what it is. What do they want to wake up doing every day? What gets them excited at a very fundamental level? And if we can help them tap into that, rather than just speaking very high level about their career objectives, we can actually in the Career Center help them come up with something that's uniquely suited for them. And that's really where the magic is, whether that happens right away, to Heather's point, or whether it's a stepping stone and they get there over, maybe it's 2 to 3 jobs where they're filling gaps in their competencies that still help them achieve that 3 to 5 year goal that they've set for themselves. So it's certainly a process, but I still am waiting for that crystal ball.
Yeah, and the glare of the media. I mean, there's a place that just opened up as Speaker of the House. Whether or not any of your graduates will be applying for that one, and it seems to be walking on eggshells with that. Abigail, you know just what a fan I am of career services within this MBA experience. I see you as this magic dust with the sort of work that you do, and it's deeply personal. We're talking about individuals and their own backgrounds, experiences, and hopes and dreams. So how are you achieving that? I mean, it's sort of, you've got coaches, you've got experts, it's a lot of one-on-one work that you're doing.
It is. It's a lot of one-on-one work. So we look at it as there are different levels. We start working with our students, our incoming students. Most of them start in June. Some of them start a little bit earlier. And we do a lot of work over the summer that includes broad webinars, it includes small strategy sessions, and it starts including one-on-one coaching. And all of that combination continues through their years here. We also provide alumni coaching and alumni webinars. So it's not just, oh, you're done, see ya. It's really an ongoing process and an ongoing support. But I think a lot of, so much of what we do in the workshops even is putting out the questions to set up the inquiry that then really you get the most value out of it when you do work with a coach individually. We do a lot of small strategy sessions, and a lot of it is students really, us facilitating them working with each other and hearing where other people are going so they can then build on it or get ideas or, oh, I hadn't thought about my search that way or what I want that way. And then there's almost always the follow-up individually. So our coaches come from a variety of backgrounds. Many of them have graduate degrees, many of them have MBAs, many of them have corporate experience. Many of them have worked in HR or line roles. So there's a ton of background. We have a generalist model for our coaching team, and really with the idea that all of that individual work is hard for any human being. It takes really asking yourself questions that we aren't used to asking, but to get the best answers, it's so important. And it's sometimes fun. It's not like hard, like painful. It's sometimes some people love it. It really, but it you know, at its best, it can take some work. And some people do that very quickly and easily, and some people struggle with it because that idea is new. And so we have, you know, the idea of our coaches is we encourage students to find the coach that they resonate with. Some of them are very direct. Some of them will hold their hand through every step. Some of them are some combination. And, you know, sometimes it is because of the person's background. Sometimes it's not. But the idea that, you know, all of our coaches work across industries. Our employer team is divided by industries, and we really rely on their expertise, and they share information directly with students, directly with our coaches as well. We use a lot of alumni and alumni coffee chats and things separate from employer coffee chats, and our second years who actually work for our office as career advisors that we use in a very targeted way. But, you know, one of the things that's so unique is using the coaches to make sure that who's the person who actually is going to resonate, whose feedback is going to be what you can hear and what you need, and whose guidance. And sometimes people use multiple people, you know, they kind of bounce around a little bit, and that's okay too. It looks a little bit different for every student, and that's by design. We want it to be different for every student because every student really is on a different journey and has different priorities and different concerns and different needs. And so I love that we're designed to have the flexibility to give them exactly, you know, what they want and to pick and choose and sort of put it all together so it works very differently for different students.
Well, when you and the team at Ross meet all of these incoming class, perhaps they bring their apprehensions. You know, it's an intimidating first week of school. But Heather, of course, you have the spoiler alert. You know that there's going to be the map immersion and how they'll emerge from something as intensive as that. So are you factoring in what that first year will look like as you're even then preparing them for summer internships and thinking, you know, that there'll just be this constant process of development, and we'll see and we'll build and keep moving forward?
Yeah, our prep starts really early. So we start the summer before they get here. Actually, we start as soon as they commit to us. So as soon as you pay your deposit, we'll start working with them. So as early as March, we get them started on that trajectory. And one of the reasons we do that is to help them clear the way their first year, because that tension with academics and recruiting is so real, especially as we see companies coming earlier and earlier. So our summer recruiting prep course starting in March, you know, they're working with a coach one-on-one. We have assessments to help them clarify their interest, values, and focus, workshops, alumni panels. And before they even step foot on campus, they've got a good draft of their resume. So with having that all done, then it really helps ease the stress level when they get on campus to get ready for that first year. And then one of our hallmark offerings is our functional accountability career teams, which are done, you know, consulting or tech product manager, brand manager. So those are groups of 5 to 7 students led by an MBA too, and it goes through the whole recruiting process in the fall. So it's run by our peer coaches and our staff coaches. They meet weekly. It's a great support group, as well as tactical walking through the recruiting process, since it's slightly different for each one of those. And that also builds like a great part of our community. So our whole ecosystem is our staff coaches who are experts and have actually worked in these fields, our peer coaches who have this empathetic mindset, have just gone through it, and then the clubs who are doing some of their own kind of programming, and then our employee relations team. So we really like to leverage the whole ecosystem in that whole first year as they're kind of getting ready to jump into their MAP projects and then go right from there into their internship. So that's how we kind of keep the whole machine working.
And I know that there are great courses in finance and accounting and strategy and supply chain and everything. I just think we should start with this, because what all of you are describing and the level of support. Now, Ed, as you think about one of the first outcomes, for many that will be the summer internship. So at Fuqua, how you're supporting them in that first year ahead of the internship. And then perhaps the add-on question, when they come back after that summer, do you see a change in them?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll address the first one first, how we support them in their internship search. And like many of our colleagues, my colleagues on this call, we start supporting them as soon as they're all in on due. So for a lot of logistical, tactical reasons, I think they can figure out their resume before they get to campus. And also start thinking through, some drafting on some of the introspective activities they did during the application season to figure out what's going to be next for them. But one of the things you said before this round of questions, Matt, that really resonated with me was around, this is a very personal business. And where I'm going with this is that it's important for students to understand what incentives are at play when they're working with a career center. And what I tell them is that all of the coaches on our team deeply believes that they all deserve meaningful work. And we care deeply about them getting there. If that means finding an internship tomorrow that converts into full-time, great. If that means them finding an internship the last day of May, and then that internship not being anything they ever want to do and doing something, hey, fantastic. It's another step in the right direction. But it's important for me to communicate to the students that we work with that all our coaches, as diverse of backgrounds that we have, they all care deeply about them. That may not mean much to a lot of different people, but being able to make that connection between coach and student, that is an unlock that can create some pretty amazing outcomes. Whether it's the student buying into what I'm trying to lay down, the student being vulnerable so that I can build them up in times when they're not feeling so great. But that's an unlock that we concentrate on a lot. And the last thing I'll say about that before I move on to the internship piece, or what they do when they change their minds, is I was recently hiring someone new. And a lot of the questions that we ask coaches are, do you know this industry? Can you coach people? Can you do the job, right? But one of the ones I spend a lot of time about is, do you care about the students that you work with? And what drives that care? I can teach people how to coach. I can teach people the intricacies of management consulting, but I can't teach people to care. And that's what makes the coaches that I work with, I love them, and our students love them as well. And the care is what makes that relationship work. Now, quickly on your second one, do students change their mind after their internship? Yeah, it happens all the time. I think the statistic I throw out is that about half of the class goes back to their internship full time. I say that, and that makes people lose their minds. Not only half the class get offers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying half of the class decides to go back full time to the place that they interned, which for some people is great. I'm done after I get my internship. For other folks, they're like, look, I'm glad I did it, but I want to do something different. I'm going to see what else is on the market, because I care more about what I'm going to do for the rest of my life versus this arbitrary 10 to 12 week internship. And that's a normal process that we go through. It's not the exception, it's the norm. And in fact, for those that end up going and taking their jobs, their internships turned into full-time jobs, we often encourage and work with them to continue to search out opportunities to see if that's really what they want before they actually say yes to that full-time offer. So that's something that we do with students all of the time. It's very, very normal. And I say that because sometimes people think that the internship is the only way to get the full-time job, and that's far from the truth for us.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, Heather was talking about empathy. You've introduced care and caring and vulnerability. And a gamut of emotions involved in all of this. So, Christy, how do you navigate, the student that comes in and says, I want to work at this company with this job title, and yet they have 2 years ahead of them with the opportunity to explore, for the good and the bad. How do you sort of open them up to the endless opportunities that they now have the chance to explore?
I love this question. And it starts, and I'll say it's both tactical and then just philosophical. So the tactical side is a lot of what was said previously. Abigail and Heather were talking about, working with the students very early on from the time they deposit onward to help them feel prepared. It's also the best time we've found to allow for that exploration, because let's face it, the MBA, the 2-year MBA is fast and furious. And it's not 4 years to explore and really see where you want to land, right? It's pretty intense, right, from the start of matriculation onward. So using that summer to really explore and think about their career objectives, their why is really important to us. So we have asynchronous and one-on-one coaching available over the summer to help them explore that why and really their overall purpose. But the philosophical piece of this is we talk a lot within our team about coaching versus advising. And there is a place in this world that we all operate in for both. And I actually teach our class of second-year coaches. I think Heather was talking about the peer coaches. We have a similar program at Darden. It is an elective that you'll take in your second year. It's application only. So we do have the support of second years who have, of course, just been there and done that. But the class really focuses on teaching them coaching skills that they then can apply as future business managers. And so in our team internally, we like to make sure we are walking that talk too. And so to your question, not telling them what to do, but really being in a co-creative partnership to help them explore, ask open-ended questions, listen for things, maybe the things that actually aren't being said, to help them think about things either from a different perspective or just entirely different industries that they haven't yet thought of. We do get quite a bit of that, of course, through the admissions process. They've thought about what they'd like to do. We ask in admissions to have essays around what are your future career objectives, but we all know those can change. We're all in a process of evolution throughout our lives, and we want to help them really think about what's best for them, and recognize that it's okay if they change. And so it's through that coaching partnership that we're able to achieve that.
You talk about perhaps an industry that wasn't around 10 years ago. How about 10 months ago? Because Abigail, even within the context of business and society, perhaps when we were doing these events together a year ago, we might have talked about certainly data analytics, healthcare, many aspects. We may have mentioned AI, but I don't think we even whispered ChatGPT. And boom, 10 months later, it's on everybody's mind. How can we take the AI phenomenon as the example of skill sets, a mindset perhaps that you're looking to prepare in your students to say, yeah, things are going to change, and how you roll with it's going to make the difference?
Absolutely. And I think that carries across academics, it carries across how our office works with students, it carries across different student clubs, but it is definitely a vibrant conversation across everything right now, because things are evolving very, very quickly, as we all know. And one of the things is sort of the more things change, the more they stay the same. It really requires each of our, us to ask our students some of those. That's what makes some of those questions hard. What makes you unique? What is your value proposition, you individually, not just any student? And, given that this landscape is going to be shifting, how flexible are you? Or how flexible do you want to be? Do you want to be, is that something that you really struggle with and most of our students really thrive in flexibility, and that's part of, what they are known for in many ways. But I think there are varying degrees of that and varying degrees of risk. That those are really important things for students to assess as they're making these choices, because if they're in a field that's going to be impacted, is I guess the only word I'll say, the quickest by AI, they need to be someone who has that speed of and that agility to really do that quickly, and who enjoy that and thrive in that, and that just ever-changing immediate uncertainty. And some students love that, and others love it at a different kind of pace. The same way, there are different kinds of paces for everything. And so I think that just becomes one more really important element, that what is the future of this industry? What do these jobs look like? What does this industry look like? What's the direction that it's going in? And, are you prepared when it goes a different direction? And then what? And I think that all for us comes into the coaching and the inquiry that we're in with them, because it's all about the questions. We don't have answers, but we want them to really ask themselves, and we help them and ask them a lot of the questions so they can get really in touch with what their values are. And that will lead them to really, okay, this is where I want to make my impact, and how I can really adjust and really maximize and optimize everything, all these changes.
Yeah, and the agility that goes hand in hand with that. Heather, you placed Ross within, of course, dozens, 100 departments within the wider university, and there will be people in the computer science department thinking about the technical aspects of AI. When you then think about it from a careers perspective, and bearing in mind, it's reductive to talk about them as soft skills, interactional skills, however you like to frame them, of whether you're networking, whether we're helping you with interviewing, the subject of AI might come up and how they might frame it. I mean, you need to be conscious of this. How are you helping them to have that sort of confidence and competence?
Yeah, I think this is the hot topic of the moment. And so just like the market, it cycles. So, I mean, 80 years ago, they were having this conversation about the typewriter. 25 years ago, they were having this conversation about Excel. 10 years ago, we were having this conversation about Python and SQL. So, I think you have to kind of go up about 40,000 feet and think about what's really all encompassing with this and what's going to help you succeed. And that's going to be that adaptability. And honestly, it's an attitude. You have to be ready to be malleable with your mind, and you have to know how you learn. You have to be inherently curious. You have to be willing to read. You have to be up on top of what's happening. You have to want to know and learn the greatest new thing. So, I mean, we actively are all learning and aware of what's happening. We are in communication with our students so that we know what they're interested in and we can share and exchange information. I mean, that's one of the greatest things about working in higher education is, you always feel like you're so hip. I know what's hot with music. I know what's hot with tech. So it keeps you spirited. It keeps you on your toes. But that's part of our responsibility too, right? In this world and in this area of education is to make sure we're on top of it and to set an example for our students so that they do the same. But I think underlying all of this is a foundation that students and we as practitioners have to have, with an inherent level of curiosity and an ability to learn and understand our own learning styles. So when they graduate and go to the workforce, they're bringing that with them and they know how they learn and what's the best way for them to learn so that they can immediately be relevant and stay relevant.
Right, you're right. Higher ed is really cool. Actually, dance is very cool too. How many hours are there in the day? How many hours are there or minutes in this? I knew this was going to happen. I've got these 4 wonderful people, and I'd like to stay on the same subject and get 4 viewpoints. This could have gone for 3 hours, not 45 minutes. I could talk to each of you about the role of alum to keep the students, up to date with industry developments. But I mean, Ed, just as an example at Fuqua, the alumni network is also then playing a very big and a very proactive role to help students with opportunities and staying on top of industry trends.
Yeah, I mean, the alumni play a big role in helping our students and quite frankly, helping us. I mean, so you mentioned competence and confidence. For us to be competent with our students, we have to be relevant with our students and engaging the alumni both to understand what they're up to in their careers so we can assist, and also to learn about what's going on new in their careers that didn't exist 5-10 years ago. AI is a good example. It's helpful for us to stay relevant with our students. For this to work, you need alumni that want to do that. So fortunately we do. And I think all of the other schools would agree with me that when you have people that have invested, not just in treasure, but in time in your program as students, they feel very obligated is the wrong word, but they have a strong desire to give back. Both based on their positive experiences as a student, but they are part of a family that they want to actively contribute to. So at Fuqua, our alumni are part of that. And so I would even expand that umbrella to broader Duke, that the Duke family is a powerful one, regardless of the industry that you're thinking about. It's a common bond that it's not something to be taken advantage of, but it's an opportunity that our alumni enjoy having. So I'm very fortunate that we have such a strong alumni base, both in size and quality, that's so active and willing to give their time and treasure to help both us students and our faculty to keep on advancing Duke to new heights.
Right. The time's winged chariot hurries on, and Christy, I've suddenly taken the panel through AI and your soft skills, the role of alumni. You could choose any, But I did want to close with a question that, of course, each of the four of you experience. When you think of this journey, arriving at the program, you see them graduate. In fact, you have extended relations. Do you have a favorite story, or perhaps one of those stories that characterizes the transformational impact of your school and, of course, the work that you and your team do?
I love this question. Friday was our annual consulting conference. And so we welcomed over 45 consultants back to Darden, all alumni that were eager to come and engage with first years. And right before that, one of a student from the class of 20 reached out with an email, and he said, and the subject of the email was full circle. And he's from Pakistan. And he said, 5 years ago, Christy, I would have never guessed that I would ever be here. He's at McKinsey now, and he was just going on and on about just how much his life has changed and how excited he is for everything that he's experiencing now as a consultant at McKinsey, and how appreciative he was of the role that Darden played in that transformation. So we may use the word transformation a lot, throw it around a lot in the MBA community, but that's a great example of how it really does matter, the work that we do, the programs that we offer, and these experiences. So hope that was a good anecdote there.
Well, I mean, everything. The title of the panel was, "Where can an MBA take your career?" And all four of you have addressed that in such a compelling and passionate way. In fact, I'm thinking you could probably repurpose this recording and use it in your hiring for your teams. Would you want to work at this school? Because each of the four of you just exudes this commitment, caring. I mean, it absolutely jumps off the screen. It says so much about the schools that you work at, but that sense of purpose and everything that you talked about, business being a force for good. Well, with people like you and facilitating the sort of journeys that your Yale and your Fuqua, your Ross and your Darden students are then taking, I'm not surprised we get those transformational stories. It's always an honor and a great pleasure to have you at Centre Court. Abigail, Ed, Heather and Kirsty, thank you. It was a fantastic session. Required viewing for everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Thanks, Matt.